Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Kevin Mills, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
I thought we knew each other when we were kids, but I guess Vaughn and I knew each other, your older brother, and you and I didn't meet until we were in the same Army National Guard unit.
What, 95?
No, I think it's a little bit after that, maybe.
No, spring, April of 95.
That's when you joined that unit, but I don't think we were in the same company until maybe 97.
Okay.
Something like that. We were in the same battalion, though. Yeah.
Who would have been my captain then?
Who was the guy before me? He had a mustache. Gosh, what is it? Gore. Captain Gore.
I don't remember him. I thought it was you from day one.
No. June of 97 is when I joined that company. Anyway, all right, so you grew up in Ashland, right?
Yes.
City, town of Ashland, or were you outside town?
Just outside, we're just west of Ashland.
So between like the Luck Farm and Hanover Country Club?
Yep.
In that area?
Luck Farm and Patrick Henry.
Okay. And what did you do as a kid besides go to school and do what your parents told you?
Run around, mess up, get in trouble. I played some sports, but mainly about 12, I started riding motorcycles.
Ah, that's fun, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And you had land out there and y'all just go wherever you wanted to?
Yeah, we had land with my friends. We had trails. Back then you could go ask, somebody if you could run across their land and they would let you.
And now people care about that stuff, right?
Yeah, now nobody can ride around.
I mean, we used to run through backyards when I was a kid because Silent Rob and I grew up in town, and we would just go through people's backyards, and nobody ever said anything to us.
Right.
And you had a similar version, but obviously you're on motorcycles.
Yeah, now they call the police on my kids. On kids, not my kids.
Because your kids are angels.
All the time.
I'm guessing.
All the time. Can you watch them for me?
Let me meet them first. Let's talk about that. You've got a 14-year-old and a 9-year-old?
Yes, I do.
And 14-year-old's a boy. What's his name?
Peyton. And the little girl's Erin.
And she's got you wrapped around her pinky?
She does. She acts like she's 21, 25.
And she's only 9.
And she tries to boss around her brother, but sometimes she succeeds in doing. So I call her little mama sometimes.
She's in charge.
She tries to be in charge. She's in charge of me, but not so much her brother, Peyton.
What grade is she going into?
She's going in 5th grade this year, and Peyton's moving up to 9th grade.
Okay, so he's going to be in high school.
Yeah. I can't believe it.
All right. We'll talk about them towards the end.
Okay.
Some more. All right. So riding a motorcycle. What kind of motorcycle did you ride?
I rode everything, but I ended up on a 4-wheeler. It was my last bike I had. Actually, I had after 20 years later, I got another motorcycle. Started riding around the track, but then I had kids.
When you say riding around a track, you're talking about like an oval dirt track?
Motocross track, yep.
So you were racing?
No, I wasn't racing. I was racing myself.
Oh, you're just having fun?
Yeah, racing myself and my friends.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done on a motorcycle?
I don't know. Probably.
You never got hurt?
No, I never really got hurt. I mean, I got scraped up a little bit. I think the craziest thing I ever did was a guy from work had a crotch rocket. And I got on that, and I asked him to take for a spin, because I think at the time I was thinking about getting one. And I took off down Bells Road in the city, and that thing about threw me off, and I was just like, this is not for me.
It's too fast.
It's way too fast.
And you're exposed.
Yep, and I'm too dumb to slow down.
How fast do you think you went?
I didn't look. I was looking ahead, and I hit a bump in the road, and I was just like, this is not for me.
It doesn't seem like it should be for anybody.
No, but I tell you, the craziest thing I think I did was on a snowmobile. A guy I worked with in the city, he was from upstate New York, and we went up to, he's right around, I forget the name of the lake, but he was probably 40 minutes outside of Buffalo.
Lake Erie.
No, it wasn't Lake Erie.
Ontario. I can name all 5 of them if you need me to.
Yeah, I can't remember, but we went up there, and his parents lived right on the lake, and his brother had 2 snowmobiles. And his brother had one of the fastest stock snowmobiles that you could buy. And I was riding that thing after I got comfortable riding the snowmobile. I've never done it. And they had trails for miles. I mean, you could ride all
miles
day.
And miles.
You go bars. I mean, just ride all day. And we were riding. We went out on the lake. The lake was frozen, and he my buddy took off. I passed him, and I'm flying across that lake. And I looked down at the speedometer, and it said 115. And I was just like,
on snow.
On snow, on a lake. And I held it there probably for another 3 to 5 seconds. And I remember thinking to myself, this is dumb. This is dumb.
The ice, I guess, was really thick.
Yes, yep.
It had to be.
Yeah, my head was really thick for a few seconds there. So,
I've never been on a snowmobile.
It was a lot of fun.
I guess it's kind of like a motorcycle, except it's lower to the ground.
Yeah, and a lot colder.
Yeah, a lot colder. I mean, you had to cover every bit of your skin up to be comfortable doing it.
Yeah, and he had his brother had heated gloves. I mean, I didn't get cold. We were warm because he had heated gloves, and I was dressed up like like Santa Claus probably.
All right, your dad, who I think you told me 83 now?
83, yep.
83. He was he's a former Green Beret.
Yep.
Vietnam War veteran as well? Or did
he didn't go to Vietnam, no.
Because he's a little bit older, I guess.
Yep. He went into the Marines, I think, in 57 or 58, and he was in the Marines for a year, 2 years, and somehow he reclassified because he heard about Green Berets and he decided he wanted to try out for Green Berets.
What was he doing in the Marine Corps? Do you remember?
I think he was an infantryman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's a grunt with the Marines,
Yep.
which means he's tough and maybe not so smart.
Right.
And then he heard about the Green Berets because they came into existence in 62 or 63,
I
something
think
like
so,
that.
yeah.
And he said, "Oh, that sounds even harder.
Yeah, let me try that.
Let me go do that."
The man, he went to Randolph-Macon for a semester.
Okay.
And he's just like, I asked him one day, and he's like, this school wasn't for me.
Yeah. It's not for everybody, that's
No,
for sure.
no.
And you can do amazing things and not go to college.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never really known your dad that well, and I haven't seen him in forever, but I've always had a ton of respect for his service in the military.
As well as your dad.
Yeah, right on. All right, so you're one of two boys in the family.
Correct.
You've got an older brother,
Yep.
Vaughn. Vaughn did the Army thing too. Why do you think Vaughn joined the Army?
Vaughn was, man, ever since we were little kids, ever since I can remember Vaughn, that's all he talked about. We'd go outside and play, and he wanted to play Army, play war. My dad would bring home mock weapons from, his unit that
Right.
he would let us play with. And say we would run around with mock AKs, M16s. I think he brought home a used, I think it was a bazooka.
Okay.
And, it's kind of weird the toys that we had running around the yard.
And y'all were doing this in the yard and maybe other people's properties?
Running around the neighborhood. Nowadays, they probably have people call the police on us.
Oh, if you saw a kid running around with a mock AK,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. But nobody batted an eye back then.
Nope. We had a lot of fun.
And then, so Vaughn joined as soon as he possibly could.
Yeah, he graduated in June of 86.
Yeah.
And I think 2 weeks later he was gone. I don't even think 2 weeks. I think a week within graduating he was gone.
And he did the grunt thing too.
Yep, he's 11 Bravo, and he went to jump school, and he went straight to Fort Bragg.
And he also he did Ranger School at one point. And I remember seeing him in uniform, and he had white stitches in his Ranger tab. And I said, I didn't know what it meant at the time.
Right.
And he goes, I went through during the winter. I'm like, oh, so you're especially tough and especially not so smart, maybe.
Yeah, no more toes.
Oh, man, that sounds brutal to me. All right, so then did you do the same thing? You basically followed in your dad's and your older brother's footsteps?
Yeah, I remember my dad was trying to get me to do something else. My dad was like, I don't know, maybe he thought I was a lot more softer than my brother.
He's never said that to
No,
you.
he's never said that, but you can tell by the looks. But no, he always tried to get me to do something else. He either tried to get me to college or a trade school. He tried to steer me away from the military. But, in school, I won't say I didn't get in trouble, but I wasn't focused. So I
Like
knew,
a lot of kids. A lot of teenage boys are not focused.
I knew I had to do something to get some focus, and I could tell my brother was having good times, and he would tell me sometimes it's miserable, but I could see the change in him, and I think I could see like the smile on my dad's face when he would come home.
Yeah.
My dad always smiled at us, but I could just tell my dad was proud of what he's doing. I think that's probably what led me in that direction. So my brother, I think it was like this spring just before I got out, and he came home one week, and went to the recruiters with me, and went to the what was that recruitment place you'd go sign up?
The one in Ashland?
No, the one in Richmond.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember the name, but we went there, and I was going there. My brother had talked to me about doing a couple different things, and he was like, "You need to be an aerial scout observer." And so he showed me that, and I watched a couple little videos that he showed me. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So we went to sign up that day, and the recruiter's like, you got to wait a year and a half to go in.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, school's that far out. And I'm like, I'm not waiting a year and a half. I got to, I want to go now.
What was the MOS?
Aerial scout observer. I forget what the MOS
It's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
They probably had one class a year, maybe
Probably
two.
so. Yep.
Yeah.
And so they came back and they offered me 11 Bravo. My brother was like, "No, don't do that."
Because he was 11 Bravo.
He said, don't do that. Do something else. And so they came back and gave me like 12 Bravo, MP, supply, a cook, and I was just like, you can nix these two right off the bat. And I asked them about an MP, but at the time they had height restrictions, and you had to be over 5'11".
Why is that?
I have no idea. So
Sort of a presence sort of thing?
probably so.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, I was interested in being a 12 Bravo, but I was like, look, I remember telling the recruiter, the guy sitting there with me, I think he was an E6. I was like, I'm not making a decision today. And they're like, you got to. I'm like, no, I don't.
No, you don't.
And so
The recruiters will tell you all kinds of stuff.
So he goes into an office, and the lieutenant and the captain comes out, and they all get around me and start going at me. And I'm like,
Was Vaughn with you?
he was sitting outside. I said, look, I want to speak to my brother. And so they kind of hesitated, but I could see my brother through a window. And so I got up, went out there, and I told my brother what was going on. He's like, he said, we can leave right now.
Yeah.
He said, I'll take you home. And so they came back at me again out there in the hallway. My brother was standing there. My brother, he actually stood up to that captain. It's like, this is my brother. He said, sir, with all due respect. He said, he's not signed up, and if he wants to walk out of here, if he wants to tell you no, he by all means.
Yeah. Of course.
He's 18. He can walk out of here. And so they just kind of looked at me, and you're like, well, this is why you came today. I'm like, well, I came here to sign up as an aerial scout observer, and you're telling me a year and a half. So I left. We walked out of there that day, and I remember
And by the way, I want to be clear. Most recruiters are not that over the top, putting pressure on kids.
So my the recruiter I was talking to in Ashland, was he kind of stood back because he had already met my brother, and somehow they kind of knew each other. So he didn't say anything, but on the way home, I was riding with him. He's like, yeah, they're probably disappointed. They thought you'd sign up today. And he's like, typically that's what guys do. Guys or girls, they come and they sign up. And I said, I'm going to think about it, and I'll get back with you. And I probably 2 weeks later, after talking to my brother, and my dad introduced me to one of his friends that it was in his unit. He was a Green Beret. His son went in and was a 12 Bravo. So we went and had lunch with him one weekend. He talked to me about being a 12 Bravo, and so did my brother. And I was like, sounds pretty cool. I want to be a 12 Bravo.
Yeah,
So
well,
I
and just
signed up.
for the listening audience that's never been in the Army, 12 Bravo is a combat engineer. Yep. I've always described combat engineers as grunts with brains.
Right. Exactly.
That's accurate, right?
It is accurate, yeah.
Because you got to do math.
Yeah.
And grunts typically can't do math.
No. Unless they got ranger beads.
Yes. Yeah. They can count to 10 with the ranger beads.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. So where'd you go to basic? Well, no, let's back up. You leave the recruiter or the trio of recruiters. How long did it take for you to come back?
I think it was 2-3 weeks maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I came back. Yeah, it was about 2 to 3 weeks because we went and met my dad's friend's son. And I think that was within a week because we met him on a Saturday and had lunch, and he talked to me about it. And
it sounded pretty cool.
Yeah, he did. And he had gotten out, and this is back in the early 80s probably, or mid 80s, and he had gotten out, and he was working for SB Cox as one of their demo experts. So he's like, when you get out, you can do this. You can continue to do it.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, a lot of what the infantry doesn't translate very well to the civilian world, unless you're going to go be a contractor overseas, that kind of thing. Yeah. And being an infantryman, you do learn leadership skills that can be applied. But for 12Bs, it's engineering, and a lot of that does apply in the non-military or civilian world. Did you ever use anything you learned as a 12B?
No.
Neither did I.
No. Maybe the math when I'm figuring out a checkbook.
Helped you with the math. Gave you another couple years of math.
Yeah.
All right, so where'd you go to basic?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Oh, my gosh. What was the nickname for Fort Leonard Wood?
Fort Lost in the Woods.
That's right.
I went just before Thanksgiving and spent my first Thanksgiving away from home. And I remember leaving that morning. Staff Sergeant Green came and picked me up. That was my recruiter. Mm. He came and picked me up, and I remember I got up, it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. My parents were still in bed. I said, well, at the time I thought, I'd be home for Christmas. Because that's what they told us. You'd be home for Christmas Exodus. And this is right before the Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Right.
And so my brother was already over there. And so, hey, I'll see y'all in a month. Bye. And I walked on out, got in his car, and, I think probably May of, 91, I came home for 2 weeks.
Because you did one station unit training, and so you did AIT right after basic.
Yep.
Yeah, so two things about the year and the time of year. The time of year, there was ice on the ground all the time out there. People don't understand how cold Missouri can get.
I didn't realize that Missouri had that much snow and got that cold.
There was always something, either ice or snow on the ground all the time.
Yep. It got miserable a few times. It definitely introduced me to the cold.
So, do you have any memorable days from basic?
Having bronchitis. I remember staying up all night and coughing. No, basic's kind of a blur. For the most part. I mean, I had some really good drill instructors, but it's just kind of a blur. I remember I got there and it's like I was leaving.
Well, it was 32 years ago.
God, why you got to say that?
I'm older than you, brother.
Yeah, but even then it was kind of a blur. It seemed like it would last forever. 12, 16 weeks, but it went by quick for me.
You're talking about the whole thing, AIT too? Mm-hmm. AIT was a blur too?
Part of it was. AIT was a lot more interesting. Unless, in basic we were shooting. I liked shooting. In AIT we got into more of our job. I didn't care too much for the classroom stuff. I was struggling to stay awake, like most of us.
Yeah.
But no, it's a lot more interesting. And, I think I was thinking a lot about, by then I was also starting to think about jump school. Mm. My palms are getting wet, sweating, just thinking about jumping in an aircraft.
Well, and your brother and your dad had gone to jump school.
Yeah.
All right, so at AIT, you got to learn about mobility, counter-mobility, general engineering, survivability, all that stuff.
Yep.
And I think the mobility stuff, I don't know, I always enjoyed the mobility stuff because it meant you were helping the attack.
Right.
And you got a good dose of mines and minefields and that kind of stuff too, I imagine.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing you learned at AIT? And by the way, you probably learned a lot more once you got to a unit. But
I think we started messing with C4, and I enjoyed it, and TNT and stuff, and I started having a lot of fun with that. It's neat. Here I am, 19 at the time, and they're giving me this stuff.
Blowing
stuff
up.
They're letting me blow shit up. So
yeah.
I was like having a good time. So I was like, man, they're paying me for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you blow up at AIT? And then we'll talk about stuff that you did once you were in the unit.
AIT, we would just go set charges up. We might blow up concertina wire, something like that. And I think they had, we would just set stuff up and just blow it up.
Yeah.
We would just go out there and put C4 or whatever up. Or we would make, Bangalore's and just blow that up.
Yeah.
Nothing too special.
It wasn't like it was part of an overall mission and you weren't blowing up bridges or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty basic stuff. Yeah. There's some stuff out here on the range. We'll just blow that up and it's fine.
Speaking of bridges, I remember they took us we had to put up bridges one day or a couple of days. I hated that.
Which bridge?
what is it, the Bailey's Bridge?
The Bailey's a
and
pain in the ass.
What is the floating bridge?
Yeah.
Whoops.
Salt Float Bridge, I think is what it's called.
No, I think it's called something
Oh,
else.
daggone it. This is going to be bad. All my engineer buddies, all that may be listening to this, are going to be disappointed in me.
They had the boat. The boats were cool. The boats had some horsepower.
AFRB, a Salt Float Ribbon Bridge.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, AFRB. I got lucky with that. My memory came back. Yeah, the AFRBs were kind of cool. It unless you were really proficient in putting them together, it would take some time to get that bridge together. The Bailey just seemed like a dumb bridge to me.
I agree. That was the most. I never enjoyed that. I was miserable. I didn't. It's just like watching paint dry for me.
It was pretty boring for me too. I like demo.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a ton. The demo was awesome. All right, so you end up finishing AIT, and everything was clean through basic and AIT, no issues, and then you're going to be assigned to a unit. Did you know which unit you were going to be assigned to?
Well, the funny thing is my contract, when I went to the recruiter, I thought I was guaranteed an airborne unit. And so my brother was like, hopefully you go to Vicenza, Italy, or you come to Bragg.
Yeah, 173rd, that's a great place to go.
And so I went to airborne school, and we got there on a Friday night, late Friday night, because as soon as we graduated, they put us on buses and sent us down to Fort Benning. And we got off the bus, they put us up in barracks, and it kind of, I think the following Monday, they started processing us. And so I think we had a 0 week. So for a week, we didn't do anything. And we started airborne school. So I graduated airborne school, which my dad came down to. He was supposed to jump with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I think he hit his back. He broke his back when I was little.
He shouldn't be jumping.
Yeah, he broke his back when I was little, jumping out of an airplane. And he healed up and kept jumping out of airplanes. But he jumped with my brother, but he was supposed to jump with me. And I think it was his back.
Your dad was in his early 50s.
He was in his 40s and late 40s probably.
No, hold on now. He's 83 now.
83.
No, sorry.
Yeah, it would have been late 40s.
Okay.
Or maybe 50.
Yeah. I'd say 50, yeah.
But you're right. It's probably a good thing you didn't, because he's got all kinds of back issues now. But so make a long story short, they came when we graduated, and they came around and gave us our orders, and my orders were for Germany for 2 years. And now I kick myself in the ass for this. But I went to the operations sergeant, and I'm like, I'm supposed to have an airborne unit.
You were going to be 19, 20 years old in Germany for 2 years?
Yep.
I'd do that all day long, man.
I wish I had. Because when I was at the Guard, we went to Germany for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we had 1 or 2 days to go out on town.
Yep.
And I had a blast. I remember looking around like, God, I gave this up to go to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. God, I'm dumb. So
there's no comparison between Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and Germany.
No, but I kicked myself in the ass over that now. But I was like, hey, I'm supposed to go to Fort, be an airborne unit, blah blah blah. Which I would have went to Germany for 2 years, and probably I would have gotten an airborne unit after it was 2 years.
Yep.
So the operations sergeant, I remember him asking me, "You sure you want to do this? You sure you want to give up Germany for 2 years?" I'm like, "Yeah," trying to be all macho. And
the ops sergeant was what, in his 30s?
Probably so. Yeah. Probably late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, I'll get it straight for you." He said, "It might take a little time." So I was at Fort Benning for another 3 weeks.
Just waiting for the paperwork to get straight.
Waiting. And the next class that came in, they had their 0 week, and then they started, and I think they were in their second or third week before I got left Fort Benning.
Wow.
But the cool thing about it, I was like one of maybe 2, 3, 4 people that got held over. A couple guys that got recycled because they got hurt.
Right.
And so I was like E2, and I remember like the next class comes in and they start, and so guys start falling out. You had E2s all the way up to, I think it was an E5, E6 had fallen out. And they were waiting to get their orders cut back to go back to the units, or getting orders to go to a unit. And the first sergeant, he comes out there one day, and they would I just get in uniform. I might do PT with some of the black hats if I wanted to,
right?
And just kind of just do my thing during the day. And finally, the first sergeant's like, Mills, come here, Mills. And he's like, he said, I want you down in formation, my 9 o'clock formation today. And so I came out there at 9 o'clock, and he had these E6 all the way down to an E2 lined up. And he had me stand out in front of them, and he was like, this is my private airborne. He said, I'm putting him in charge, because he got pissed. Because apparently they were cutting grass one day and sprayed grass clippings all over his white Nissan Maxima. And that was his pride and joy. And he was pissed.
They messed up.
Yeah. And so this is my private airborne. He's in charge of y'all. What he tells y'all is what I'm telling y'all. And so here I am at E2, and he gave me a driver to drive around in a Humvee. Man,
you were the only E2 that ever had
and
that.
I felt so small. I'm like, I don't like this. These guys are getting pissed at me.
Well, especially with a staff sergeant.
Yeah, and so I didn't have to do anything but go around and make sure they did what First Sergeant told them. First Sergeant, I'm trying to think of his name. But, so, yeah.
That's unusual.
That was unusual.
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
All right, so you do 2 years at Bragg. Were you in the 307th?
No, I was there 4 years.
Oh, you were there a total of 4?
Yep. No, I was in the 20th Engineer Brigade.
Okay.
I was in the 37th Engineer Battalion.
And that's all under 18th Airborne Corps?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were basically attached to the 101st.
Okay.
Which was kind of strange being there, Kentucky, and we were there at Bragg, but yeah.
Yeah, because the 18th Airborne Division, I guess, they obviously had their own engineers. And I guess there were so many engineers at Bragg that they were supporting a bunch of different units around the country.
Our brigade, we had the 27th, and they had us. Then they had like the 20th Engineer Battalion, I think it was.
Okay, yeah.
And I think they were more light equipment, there's bridge guys, and just electricians, and just everything across the board that would fall up under a combat engineer.
So when Desert Storm, or Shield, then Storm happened, I was at Bragg doing the ROTC thing, and I graduated the same day that Bragg just cleared out. And so I remember very distinctly that was August 1st of 1990. Basic and Airborne was over there by August 2nd, maybe August 3rd, and then they put a lot of other people over there in Saudi Arabia. And then the ground war kicked off January, February timeframe, early February, I think.
January 15th?
Yeah, where were you?
No, that was the air war.
The air war started mid-January.
February.
I think it was early February, the 4-day ground war, effectively. Were you at Basic and AIT when all that was going on?
Yep, I think we were just finishing up with Basic, or maybe a week in AIT.
Yeah.
When the air war kicked off.
And what was that like going through Basic and AIT, knowing that was going on halfway around the world?
So we were supposed to go home for Christmas. Then we get there and we get into Basic about a week into it, and they're like, "Guess what? You're not going home. They're going to get y'all through here and get y'all to y'all's units, and more than likely you'll be going overseas." And of course, my brother was over there because when Iraq invaded Kuwait, I was at Outer Banks with my parents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so my brother got sent over there right away. Then
what unit was he in back then?
He was in our Lars D unit, and I can't remember the unit.
Long-range surveillance.
Yeah, but I went to Basic and AIT, and while I was in Basic, my dad got orders. And my dad had gotten out. He was in the IRR.
He got called up out of the IRR.
Yeah, got called back up, and they sent him to Bragg.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, left my poor mother at home. So
all her 2 babies and her husband were gone.
Yeah. And so I remember we got a letter. No, I think my mom told me over the phone. I went down there and called her one night. She told me over the phone, and she's like, "Yeah, your dad's leaving here tomorrow." And I remember...
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, I remember I went up there and we had this Sergeant Hildreth. He was like, I guess, the NCO for the night. He was staying there with us. And he was in the 82nd. He did Grenada, and I think he did Panama. Because I think he had a mustard stain on his jump wings.
You don't see those very often.
No, and he... and I went in there, and I remember asking, I said, "Hey, look, my dad just got reactivated. He's a Green Beret. My brother's over there, and he leaves tomorrow. And they won't let us use the phones that night." And I think it was a Sunday. And I was like, is there any way I can go call my dad? And he's like, "Sure, go." He said, you got an hour. And he let me go out there in the cold and went and call my dad.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm glad you got a hold of him.
Yeah.
Where was he already in uniform when you talked to him, or was he packing up?
He was packing up. He's at home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was interesting. The Times Dispatch on the newsletter did an article on my dad and my brother and mentioned me. Back then.
the young one at
Yeah,
Basic.
they talked about. They interviewed my mom and said they were asking my mom what it was like to have your husband and your two sons. You got a son already over there. Your husband's been reactivated, and you got a son in basic. So,
You remember what she said?
no, I don't. But I have that article at home. I'd have to dig it up. I'll have to take a picture of it and send it to you one day.
It's unusual, and look, I say this to a lot of people. It's not just the men or women in uniform. It's the ones that are taking care of stuff back at home. So your mom was doing some hard stuff on her own because she was used to having at least her husband around.
Yeah.
And you had just left the house.
Yeah. Oh, she's probably glad I left the house. I wasn't cleaning the refrigerator out.
Was that your job?
Yeah, to eat all the time. Of course. I was a
When
teenager.
you mean cleaning that, you mean
No, I was
you
a
mean
teenager.
crush
Eat all their food.
Yeah, my son has that problem.
So does my son.
Yeah.
Dad, we ain't got anything to eat here.
Right. Well,
wonder why.
my son's old enough to eat to drive. Like, you know where the grocery store is, man.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can, but Peyton said it here earlier about an hour ago. He's like, it'll be so much easier when I get my license. I'm like, yes, it will.
For everybody.
Yeah.
For everybody. Then you have to worry about it when they're out on the road.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a nightmare itself. But yeah.
Great.
Yeah. You can be anxious about a million different things. All right. So, what are your fondest memories of being at Bragg?
Shoot. I have a lot of memories of Bragg. I have a lot of good memories. Unit I was in had a lot of good guys. I had a variety of people, man. Guys from every walk of life, and probably just the camaraderie. Getting to know different guys, being pushed. Because I remember I came in, I was somewhat athletic, somewhat in shape, coming out of basic and IIT, and man, I remember just some of them guys were just animals, and that that pushed me, and so I remember, shit, man, I got at the time best shape of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy jumping. It's crazy for me to say this now, but I enjoy jumping out of planes. But now it's weird. I'm scared of heights.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't do it now?
I had a friend of mine here about 2 years ago mentioned about maybe going to jump for our 50th birthday, and I was like, and he went skydiving while I was at Bragg because he was at Radford or Tech. And he came down there, and I was supposed to meet him and go with him. But I remember we got a 4-day, so I came home that weekend. And I was like, man, I'm getting away from this place. But I said, if you pay for it and set everything up, I'll go. I said,
But you haven't jumped out of a plane in forever.
yeah, I said, I'm not going to put any effort into it at all to do it other than show up.
I was going to say, it's been 20-some years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you weren't afraid of heights when you were younger?
No, never was.
What, did something change, or it just kind of happened one day?
I got old.
So as you get older,
I
things
guess
start
so.
scaring you more.
Yeah, I remember the first house I bought in the city, I was going up on a ladder to work on a window, and I realized, damn, I'm scared of heights now. So,
Guy who'd been jumping. How many times did you jump out of planes, roughly?
you shouldn't ask a paratrooper that. Like a million.
Too many?
No, I had 53 jumps by
Okay.
the time I got out.
Yeah.
And I probably had 60 scratches.
Mm.
So my brother, he laughed at me. He's like, man, we never scratched. I was like, I guess
You had more scratches than actual jumps,
It seemed like it. I say that, but it seemed like we had a lot of scratches.
and it's all usually wind or a storm coming through.
Wind is typically wind. I remember a couple times it was raining. But my very last jump, they gave me, I got to jump with no equipment. And it was that night, and we were jumping out of C-141s. And they were running off because it was real foggy. And so they were running off their instruments. And so I remember it was 6 birds. And I think we were either the lead or the second bird. And we go around, and we're standing up, getting ready to jump. And we racetrack again. And then we end up going back to Bragg and Pope Air Force Base and landing. And the one of the jump masters or the load masters was like, yeah, he said, I looked out, and I saw the trail bird below us.
That's not good.
That's not good. He said, so we came back around, and I didn't see it. And then he said, that's why we racetracked so many times, because I couldn't see the bird. And so I was like, well, that's good. My last jump probably would have been my very last.
You don't want to. You don't want to hit another plane.
Yeah. So maybe the thought of that spooked me, and
Maybe.
Yeah. Who knows?
So when you typically jump, when you're doing a combat jump, describe it for the person who has never been in the military, never jumped out of a plane. What's that like?
So I was, you have all your equipment, and you rig all your equipment up, like your rucksack. You rig it up under your reserve, which your reserve is about mid your stomach, and so it hooks up on D-rings below your reserve, and it hangs from you, and it bruises your shins, bruises your thighs. And
You're walking with what, 70 pounds of stuff between your legs, effectively?
Probably so, maybe all together.
Yeah.
Smarter ones are trying to get rid of stuff in their rucksack. But they made me a 60 gunner as a private. And so they took the smallest dude that was in that platoon.
I was gonna say, can I ask your height, just so that
5'8".
You're 5'8", and they gave you the pig.
And I was probably a $140-ish then, and so they gave the smallest guy the 60. And
The 60, if you put it on its butt, it would bite.
it was up under my shoulder, and we put them in weapons cases. And after every 2 jumps, I'd have to get a new weapons case because the barrel of it was pointed down. And so it would rub a hole in the bottom of the weapons case.
Wow.
For me walking along the tarmac or whatnot, walking out to the bird.
Man.
So, yeah, it made the smallest guy the 60 gunner, but I guess they made the toughest guy the 60 gunner.
Nice.
But I enjoyed
like
it,
that.
man. I enjoyed having the pig. When you open that thing up, people around you knew it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
It was a pretty reliable weapon, too.
It was that.
Yeah.
It was that. You could get everything in that thing. That thing would fire.
Yeah, it was in the system for a long time.
Yep.
A really long time.
I think they still have like versions of it, stripped down versions of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't stray far away from the original.
But no, I that's probably you asked me the most memorable time, probably being a 60 gunner. But when I finally gave that thing up, I was like, whew, I no longer had to hold this thing.
You probably felt like you were floating.
Yeah. I got it. Somebody took a picture of me. We were doing a rucksack march one day, and it was like in July, and I'm just drenched in sweat, and I got that thing hanging off of me. I remember that thing hanging off my neck, and my neck killing me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like, God bless it. I can't wait to be done here today.
But you never gave it up.
No. They finally took it from me. And another guy came in, and E4 came in. A guy who had gotten out and came back in. They ended up taking it from me and giving it to him.
He was a newbie because he got out, right?
Mm-hmm. And he was dumb as a box of rocks. So that guy had no off switch. He would just go and go and go.
Well, that can be good at times.
It can be, but he was dumb as hell. God bless him.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, so back to jumping out with all this stuff on. You're dropping quickly, right? You don't want to be hanging out in your parachute, so you're moving pretty quickly towards the ground, right?
I think that all depends on the air. Because I remember one night we jumped, it was cold and there was no wind. And I remember, because my rucksack, I went to lower it. We had a 15-foot line. You would pull this, I forget what it's called now. You'd pull this thing and your rucksack would drop 15 feet below you. And I went to pull that thing that night, and the Velcro didn't come off, didn't release. And that thing dropped right below my feet. And so it was dangling right at my feet.
That's
right
not
below
good.
my feet.
That's
I'm
not
like,
good.
I remember coming down, I'm like, I'm going to break my damn legs.
Yeah,
I'm going to break both my legs.
Yeah.
And I was kicking it. And I was probably kicking it. It's probably just flying off to the side. I was probably barely hitting it. But I remember coming down, and it was no moon, and we were jumped on Holland DZ, which is, it had an FLS, and that thing was made out of clay, and that thing was packed, and it was hard. And I remember coming down, and I was just kicking, and I finally got that thing to the side of my feet, and we had to pull on the risers to kind of slow us down and get ready to land. And I remember as soon as I grabbed my risers, I went feet ass into the ground.
Because you couldn't see the ground.
No, and I was kicking that damn rucksack the whole time. And I thought I broke my back that night. I guarantee I bruised my tailbone. Because I remember sitting down for about 3 weeks after that, and it would hurt.
Oh, I bet.
Of course, I never said anything.
Should you have, looking back at it?
Looking back on it, yeah. Because now, I'd learned probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I have a herniated disc. I can't say it was related to that, but I'm sure.
There's a decent chance it is.
Yeah.
Mm. All right, so you did 4 years at Bragg, and then your original commitment was 4 years?
Original commitment was 4 years, and my family thought I was going to do 20 years. But I remember one night I was up to about 1 o'clock, just messing around, and I think it was a weekend, and I went to bed about 1:15, or maybe it was like a Wednesday. I went to bed, and as soon as I started to go to sleep, they came up and got us. And we ended up jumping into Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I landed in the trees, and it was 37 degrees and raining.
That's the worst.
Yeah,
There's nothing worse than that.
Yep, I landed in the trees, and I just...
Well, hold on, let me back up. It's bad to land in a tree. I'm not a paratrooper, but it's bad to land in a tree. But that weather, that combination of above freezing but below 40 and raining is miserable.
And I remember I finally got out of the trees, and they had me carry the 60 that time because that guy, the E4, some reason, I think his wife was having a baby. So for whatever reason, he got out of it. So he didn't go, so they gave me the 60 again to take there. And I just remember we met up, and our platoons moved out, our squads, platoons. And I remember sitting down. We sat down for a few minutes. I remember my neck started hurting. And I guess I did something when I hit the trees. And I was just like, that's it. I'm done. I'm getting out.
And you were close to the end of your 4-year commitment at that point.
Yeah, that was like in the winter of 94. And we got back, and a couple of weeks later, I went to Alaska for a month or so for the winter school. I forget what it's called.
Oh, shoot.
Winter Warfare Training Center.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's where I learned to ski.
Really?
Learned to ski in the Army. And
like cross country or downhill?
Everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, they taught you all of it?
Yes. And
that's cool.
I had a blast. That was probably one of the best times I had in the Army, because our
Winter Warfare School, I think
Yep.
is the name of it.
Because our I guess team leader, our instructor, he was an E7, and he was getting ready to go SF. And that guy, he was a stud, and he wasn't like all the other instructors, not like on everybody's ass and just making them do stupid stuff. It seemed stupid at the time to us, but I remember he took us up.
It seems stupid now, too.
Yeah, yes. So I remember everybody had their rucksacks on and trying to learn how to ski. And he made us do that for about an hour or two. And this guy could ski his ass off. And so he took us up. He said, he took our squad, and he said, the best way to learn how to ski? And we were like, how? What? He said, we're going up to the top of the mountain. And he said, I'm going to cut y'all loose.
Mm.
So we went up to the top of the mountain. He said, all right, meet me at the next ski lift. And so we would take off, and man, we were just like, I had a blast. We could do anything we wanted to, man. And that guy was just laughing at us every time we fell down and challenging us to go faster. So
that's a good way to learn, actually.
Yeah, we had a blast. And so I still ski to this day.
That's awesome.
And I have the Army and that man to thank for it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that assignment for him, he probably was in heaven.
Yep.
Yeah, he gets to ski and get paid to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's training other people too,
Yep.
which is kind of cool.
You could tell he enjoyed what he was doing.
So, a few months passed after you realized you didn't want to do it anymore?
Yeah, a few months passed, and we ended up going to Haiti that year, this late summer. Got back from Haiti in November, I think, and
That was in '94, right?
Yep, and I was getting out in a month. So they sent me back early because they knew I was getting ready to ETS, and they started sending us back. And I just my last month, they kind of let me do what I wanted to do, out process. And the day after I got out, I started school.
Mm.
So that was a huge adjustment for me.
And starting school, you came back to where'd you go? VCU?
I started at Reynolds,
Okay.
Reynolds for a year, and went to VCU after that. And for the first time in 4 years, I had to get up and dress myself. It wasn't
You had to pick out your own clothes.
It wasn't PT clothes or BDUs.
Well, I mean, there's a process where you get used to doing things a certain way, right?
Yep.
All right. So, did you have to join the Army National Guard? Was there part of your commitment where you had to?
No, I was going to totally get out. And my brother, Vaughn, talked to me about it a little bit. And he's like, make your own mind up on it. He said, the only thing I'll say is when you're in school, when you have something to do or you have a test the following Monday, then you got drilled that weekend. And so I was getting ready to get out, and one of my places I had to check out is go see the recruiter, the National Guard recruiter. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it seemed like a lot of money to me. They were offering like $2,500 bonus.
Well, it was a bonus, and you got double pay for your time. So if you did a 2-day weekend, you're actually getting paid 4 days.
Yeah. So I said, hell yeah, sign me up. So, and I went into the National Guard.
You weren't jumping out of planes in the National Guard.
No.
But we were still doing 12B stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had busy weekends.
I mean, we hustled, man. We got some stuff done.
I was hoping to just go to drill and just drink beer, but there was no drinking beer involved.
I think you were 20 years too late for that, actually.
I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, when I joined, because I'm a few years older than you, when I joined, there were red coolers still around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was not a good scene. But we cleaned that up pretty quickly, I think.
That's good.
All right, so I'd love to talk about, and I'm going to have you back, because I know you got to pick up your daughter. We got about 8 or 9 minutes left, probably. You got out of the Guard. Well, what was going on in your life when you got the medical diagnosis?
No, I had to get diagnosed with a brain tumor. And so,
how did you know you had a problem?
I started having they call them cluster headaches, and it took me probably 10 months to realize what was going on. Cluster headaches come on, and for me they lasted about 60 seconds, and they compare them to migraines. They say they're even worse than migraines sometimes. Mm. And I'd get one, and it'd stop me dead in my tracks, and either I would have to sit down, or I'd always have to cover my eyes because the light would make it worse.
It sounds a lot like a migraine.
And so I started getting those, and I had them for 6-10 months and just ignored it. Mm. And finally, it was the winter. I was on winter break, and I was running running out of Ashland, and it was like 20-some degrees that day. And along the way, I took off my sweatpants, threw them in the woods near some houses, unfortunately. And my knee started bothering me. And I got about 3-4 miles outside of Ashland. And I was like, I said, my knee's bothering me. I said, let me just turn around and go back. So I ended up walking all the way back to, Wow Workout One, the gym. Mm-hmm. And on my way, I was about a mile away from my sweatpants. And some damn kid stole my damn sweatpants. I remember they were playing in the yard about 200 yards away from me. And I looked over at them thinking, oh, they're not watching me. And I threw my sweatpants in the woods. And I came back and my sweatpants were gone. And I froze my ass off walking back. But I made an appointment to go to the doctor. This is right after Christmas. Made an appointment.
Because your head was killing you when you had those episodes.
My knee was killing me.
Oh, your knee. Oh, you went in for your knee.
Yeah, so I went to the doctor. And it's Dr. Rao. He lives there in Ashland. Still lives on the railroad tracks. Yep. And he was like, you just got runner's knee. Just take a couple weeks off and you'll be fine. And anything else been bothering you? And I was like, you know what? Now, I almost didn't say anything. I said, you know what? I said, I've been getting these headaches. And he said, well, It's a good thing he asked that question. It's a good thing you answered it. Yeah, because I probably would have never said anything. Mm. And so he did some different tests on me. He couldn't find anything. He's like, he said, are you stressed? He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to college. He said, well, are you stressed to classes? I said, no. I said, now that it's in the Army, I said, I got the discipline, and no, I'm not really stressed. He said, he's like, how about your vision? I'm like, I see the board fine. I see everything fine. He said, well, go to the eye doctor anyways. It could be something with your eyesight. You might need glasses, not just reading glasses, because you read a lot. And so I went to the doctor, Dr. Rao. I went to the eye doctor, Dr. Malington, he's retired now. He was in Ashland. And he's the one that found it because he did some different tests, and I had no periphery vision. So he's like, have you noticed that when you're driving down the road, you don't see cars?
Oh, he discovered it without a CAT scan or anything.
Yep. And so I would lose, so a car could be 500 feet away from me. And when it got within 500 feet, it would disappear. It wouldn't reappear until it was like almost up on me.
Wow.
And I never noticed it. So he said, well, when you leave here today, he said, focus on that. Cover up eye and see if you, and sure as hell, I saw that. But he told me, he said, I got good news and bad news. He said, what do you want first? I said, hit me with the bad news. He said, well, you got a brain tumor. And he said, it's pushing up on your optic nerve. And he said, good news is you're going to get your eyesight back once you get it removed or whatever. So he sent me straight back to, I think I went back to Dr. Lee, because that's the first person I could get in to see. And Dr. Lee set me up a CT scan, or a CAT scan. And that day, and I went, and the guy doing the CAT scan said, no, you have nothing to worry about unless you see a bunch of doctors around my screen. So I do the CAT scan, I set up, and there's a bunch of doctors around his screen. And I remember he looks up and sees me, and he has this like, oh shit look on his face. And so he comes up, he's like, hey, we're sending you back to your doctor. They see something. And so they send me back to my doctor, and Dr. Lee says, he had already set up an MRI for me like the next day. Went and got an MRI at St. Mary's, and the nurse was probably in her 30s, and I was like mid-20s. And I go in there, and she's like talking. She said, "Oh, why are you in here?" And I was like, "Oh, apparently I got a tumor or something." And so I go in there, have the MRI done, and I walk out. And when I walk out, she's in tears. She's crying, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And she looks up to me, and she can't speak. And she's like, all she can say is like, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're sorry?" She's like, "You do have a tumor, and it's about the size of a little bit bigger than a golf ball. And it's right there behind your eyes."
Which is a huge mass, that part of your head like that.
Yeah, so they immediately sent me back to my Dr. White. I mean, not Dr. White, Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee sent me to Dr. White. He was a neurologist at the time. And I went to see Dr. White the next day. And my mom was a nurse. And he's like, yeah, he said, you have a brain tumor and we got to operate. And I remember my mom busted out in tears.
Oh, I bet.
And so the very next day, I was going to St. Mary's at 5 a.m. to get surgery. And it's weird that night, the night before that, I used to go to work out Wonder all the time. I went to the gym, and I'd already told them the day before that. And I was like, well, I'll get surgery tomorrow. And he was like, well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, I guess, Kevin. Good luck. And, I worked out and went home at 7, had dinner, and, did whatever, and got up at 4:30 the next morning, went to St. Mary's.
All right, we're going to end it there because that's a good place to stop. We're going to do a part 2 with you whenever I can get you back over here. And then we can talk about what you've been doing since the Army National Guard. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the Army National Guard since we were in the same unit together. I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate your service, man, but we're definitely going to have you back. We're going to talk about what it was like after the surgery.
Yep.
Cool. You got to go pick up your daughter, though.
Yep, I'd love to do it.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.